Chapter 1. The Village in Despair. In a land veiled by endless deserts and jagged mountains, there was a village shrouded in gloom. Its people, once vibrant and thriving, now lived in fear of a relentless drought that had turned their fertile fields into barren wastelands. The once bustling marketplace was deserted, and the laughter of children had long been replaced by hushed whispers of despair. Rumors spread among the villagers of an ancient sage who roamed the lands, a man said to carry wisdom as old as the earth itself. His appearance was unmistakable, a flowing white robe embroidered with golden threads and a majestic cane crowned by a golden lion's head. It was said that the lion symbolized not only his strength, but his ability to see into the hearts of men. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of crimson and gold, the villagers spotted a figure approaching from the desert. His silhouette stood tall against the glowing sky, and the glimmer of gold on his cane caught their eyes. Whispers turned to gasps as they realized who it was. The sage stepped into the village square, his cane striking the ground with a resonant thud. His presence commanded silence, and the air itself seemed to shift, heavy with anticipation. He looked around, his piercing gaze seeming to see beyond the physical, into the fears, hopes, and regrets of each soul present. "Why do you seek salvation, yet do nothing to change your fate?" His voice was deep, calm, and carried the weight of wisdom. The villagers, stunned by his question, remained silent. Finally, an elder stepped forward and spoke of their plight, the drought, the failing crops, and their prayers unanswered. The sage listened patiently. When the elder finished, he raised his cane and pointed it toward the horizon. Beyond those mountains lies a spring of life, untouched and pure, but reaching it requires courage, unity, and sacrifice. None can go alone, and the path is treacherous. The villagers exchanged uneasy glances. The mountains were said to be cursed, filled with dangers no one dared face. Yet the sage's words ignited a flicker of hope, a chance to break free from their suffering. As the sun set completely, the sage turned to leave. "At dawn, decide if you will remain prisoners of fear or rise together to reclaim your destiny. I will guide you only if your hearts are resolute." And with that, he disappeared into the darkness, leaving the villagers to ponder their fate. As night fell, the question loomed heavy. Would they trust the wisdom of the Golden Lion Sage and embark on a journey that could save them or doom them all? Chapter 2. The Journey Through the Cursed Mountains. At dawn, the villagers gathered in the square, their faces etched with determination and fear. The sage, now seated on a simple stone at the edge of the village, observed them silently. His golden lion cane rested against his knee, gleaming in the early sunlight. "We have chosen," declared the elder. "We will follow you to the spring." The sage nodded solemnly and rose. "The journey will test your strength, trust, and resolve. If you falter, remember this: unity is your greatest weapon, and fear your greatest enemy." The group set off toward the distant mountains, the sage leading with his steady stride. The golden lion atop his cane seemed almost alive, catching the light as if watching over them. The path grew steeper and more treacherous with each step, the once flat desert giving way to jagged rocks and narrow trails. The mountains were as hostile as the rumors had claimed. Sharp winds howled through the peaks, carrying whispers that seemed to taunt the villagers. The group encountered their first trial at a crumbling bridge suspended over a deep chasm. The wooden planks were worn and brittle, swaying dangerously in the wind. Fear gripped them, but the sage's voice cut through the chaos. This is the first test: cross together or fall divided. One by one, the villagers stepped onto the bridge, holding tightly to each other. The structure groaned under their combined weight, but they moved as a single unit, guided by the sage's unwavering gaze. When the last person crossed safely, a collective sigh of relief echoed through the group. The next challenge came as they entered a shadowed valley. Strange, unearthly sounds filled the air, and the path ahead was obscured by thick fog. Whispers of their deepest fears echoed in the mist, pulling some to a standstill. The sage raised his cane, the lion's head glowing faintly. Do not let the shadows consume you. Speak of your fears aloud, and they will lose their power. One by one, the villagers spoke their fears: hunger, loss, failure. With each confession, the fog lifted slightly, until the path ahead became clear once more. The next challenge came as they entered a shadowed valley. Strange, unearthly sounds filled the air, and the path ahead was obscured by thick fog. Whispers of their deepest fears echoed in the mist, pulling some to a standstill. The sage raised his cane, the lion's head glowing faintly. Do not let the shadows consume you. Speak of your fears aloud, and they will lose their power. One by one, the villagers spoke their fears: hunger, loss, failure. With each confession, the fog lifted slightly, until the path ahead became clear once more. The group's bond grew stronger with every trial. They faced treacherous climbs, freezing nights, and storms that threatened to scatter them. Yet each time, the sage's wisdom and the villagers' newfound unity carried them through. Finally, after days of hardship, they reached the mountain's peak. Below them lay a lush valley, untouched by drought. At its center, a spring of crystal-clear water sparkled in the sunlight, its flow endless and pure. But as the villagers began to celebrate, the sage's expression remained grave. "You have reached the source," he said, his voice heavy with warning. "But the final test lies ahead. The spring is protected by a guardian who will not yield easily. Only those who prove their worth may claim its waters." The villagers exchanged worried glances, their joy tempered by the realization that their journey was far from over. The sage stepped forward, his cane tapping against the rocky ground. "Prepare yourselves. The guardian does not test strength alone, but the purity of your hearts." The villagers nodded, their fear now mingled with hope. They had come too far to turn back, and with the sage's guidance, they knew they could face whatever awaited them. Chapter 3. The Trial of the Guardian. The villagers descended into the lush valley, their steps slow and cautious. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy, and the spring glimmered with an unnatural light, its surface unnaturally still. As they approached, a deep rumble echoed through the valley. The ground shook, and from the center of the spring emerged a towering figure. The guardian was a magnificent, ethereal lion, its body made of shimmering golden light, and its eyes burning with an intense, piercing glow. Its mane rippled like fire, and its roar sent shivers down the spines of all who stood before it. The villagers recoiled in awe and fear, but the sage stepped forward, his golden lion cane gleaming brightly. "Why do you disturb the sacred spring?" the lion growled, its voice deep and resonant, echoing across the valley. The sage bowed his head respectfully. Great guardian, these people seek your blessing. Their land suffers, and they have endured countless trials to reach this place. They come not with greed, but with hope. The lion's gaze shifted to the villagers. Hope is not enough. Many have sought this spring, but only the worthy may drink from its waters. Prove your worth or turn back. The villagers exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what the trial would entail. The guardian then roared, and 3 challenges materialized before them: a blazing ring of fire, a dark chasm, and a large stone too heavy for any one person to lift. The guardian's voice thundered. To claim the spring, you must prove your unity, courage, and selflessness. The villagers hesitated, but the sage raised his cane and spoke firmly. Remember what you have learned. Together, you can overcome anything. The trial of unity. The villagers faced the blazing ring of fire first. The flames roared, fierce and unyielding, blocking their path. Panic began to spread, but the sage stepped forward. The fire will part only for those who trust one another. Link hands and step through as one. With trembling hands, the villagers formed a chain and stepped into the fire. The flames licked at their skin, but did not burn. Together, they emerged on the other side, their unity unbroken. The trial of courage. Next, they faced the chasm. The darkness below seemed endless, and the only way across was a narrow, swaying rope bridge. Fear gripped the villagers, but the sage reminded them, courage is not the absence of fear, but the will to act despite it. Step forward, one at a time, and do not look down. One by one, they crossed, their courage bolstered by the sage's calm presence. Though the bridge swayed and creaked, each villager reached the other side, their fear giving way to determination. The trial of selflessness finally. They reached the massive stone. The villagers tried to lift it, but their combined strength was not enough. They began to despair, but the sage knelt before the stone, his cane glowing faintly. True strength lies in sacrifice. Who among you will offer your strength for the sake of others? The villagers, moved by his words, began to share their burdens. Those who were stronger lifted the stone together, while others supported them, offering water and encouragement. At last, the stone was moved, revealing a clear path to the spring. The spring's blessing. The guardian watched in silence as the villagers completed the trials. Finally, it bowed its massive head. You have proven yourselves worthy. Drink from the spring, and let its waters restore your land and your spirits. The villagers approached the spring, each taking a small sip. The water was cool and revitalizing, filling them with newfound strength and hope. As they drank, the guardian's form began to fade, its voice echoing one last time. Remember this day, for it is not the water that sustains you, but your unity, courage, and selflessness. The sage turned to the villagers, his expression one of quiet pride. Your journey does not end here. Return to your land, and let the lessons you've learned guide you always. With heavy hearts, but renewed spirits, the villagers began their journey home. The sage walked with them to the edge of the valley before disappearing into the horizon, his golden lion cane glinting one last time in the sunlight. The villagers rebuilt their village, their fields flourishing once more. And though the sage never returned, his wisdom lived on in their hearts, a beacon of hope for generations to come.